Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today's topic, I want to cover or react to a video that I came across last week, might have been even 2 weeks ago, what this young lady had to say, because, like I say, these are things that I like to talk about, but it's important that I bring depictions, representations of what Brazilians themselves are saying. It's always my objective to just bring to my followers and subscribers just what's going on in terms of race and race relations, racism, these types of things in Brazil, developments within the Black Brazilian community. So this video definitely fits into that context. Today's video is called "It's Complicated. White people see me as Black, but not all Black people see me as Black," says woman in Rio de Janeiro. I mean, I can never get tired of talking about this because I'm always just trying to figure, okay, which way are you guys going? Because it gets to be a little bit confusing. In the 24 to 25 years that I've been keeping up with, let's say all things that have to do with Black Brazilians, I've seen it's been kind of like a roller coaster ride in terms of how people see color, racial identity, racial classification, you know, uh, the census report, which some people interpret as make Brazil a majority Black country, where other people say it's not. It's an intriguing topic. This is why I felt the need to create this channel and the blog that's been up since 2011. So to get a little further into the topic for today, first I'm going to just overdub what this young lady had to say. Looks like a club where it's a samba. For anybody who's been to places in Rio de Janeiro where you'll have a nice open crowd, five or six, seven, eight samba musicians. Everybody's drinking beer. Everybody's sitting around in a circle, and the band plays a bunch of songs that everybody knows. So it happened at a samba club. So I want to check out what she has to say. Then I'm going to come back and react and put my own spin on it. Okay, so this is a young lady. The guy who's interviewing her, he makes some really good videos. I think I've reacted to one or two of his videos already. I think he calls himself Sanuto. His channel is called Fala Sanuto. And, he interviewed her and, he asked her a very intriguing question because it's something, it just is where Brazilian racial classification and identity has gone over the last 20 years. It seems like it's gone in one direction, then it's come back and it's going around in a circle. You got people who are saying, Black includes all people who are of African ancestry, but might be might be mixed. And then you have people who say, no, only the darker, clearly Black Brazilians should be recognized as Black. So right there, that tells you why it's such a difficult task to be able to decide or decipher how many Black people are there in Brazil. Does Brazil just have a small Black population? Or does Brazil have an overwhelming? It's the blackest country outside of Africa, people will say. The only way you can get to that point is if you include the largest color category, which is pardo, meaning brown or mixed race, along with the category of preto, which means specifically Black, which is 10%. You put the two together and you get 56%. But as I've said repeatedly, I'm comfortable with saying there's probably, to me, it's probably about 60, somewhere between 60 and 70 million Black Brazilians in the country. That's just for me. A study had come out some months ago that said 6 out of 10 Pardos do not see themselves as Black in Brazil, which means 4 out of 10 do see themselves as Black. So this is how I came up with a number that says probably between 60 and 70 million Black Brazilians. That's just how I see it. It kind of goes along with what other sociologists have said over the years in terms of how people classify themselves and how other people might see those same people. Anyway, let me get into this video. I'm going to just overdub what this young lady had to say, then I'm going to come back. Do people in Black environments like samba and all that see you as Black? No,
Não,
not
nem
all of
todas.
them. Why do you think that? The
O
world
mundo
we
que
see
nós
today
temos
is
hoje
mixed, right?
é miscigenado, né?
It's a
É
mixture of
mistura
Black
de
and
negro
white.
com branco.
And
E
it's
é
very
muito
complicated
complicado
today
hoje
to explain to
explicar para as
people
pessoas
that Black
que o
people
negro
have
ele
palettes
tem
of color,
paletas de cores,
unfortunately or
infelizmente ou
fortunately.
felizmente.
So the
Então, no
moment I
momento
arrive in
que
an
eu
environment,
chego num ambiente
I'm
Eu
seen
sou
as
vista
black
como
to
negra
white people.
para as pessoas brancas.
I'm
Eu não
not
sou
seen as
vista como
black a lot
negra
of times
muitas das
to
vezes
many
para
black
muitas
people.
pessoas negras.
So that's where it
Então é
comes in.
onde entra. Eu sou vista como
I'm
negra
seen as
para
black
pessoas
to white
brancas.
people.
Então,
So when
quando eu
I get into
chego
an
num
environment,
ambiente,
even
até
friends,
amigos,
I hear a
eu
lot of,
escuto muito
you're
você
white.
é branca.
And
E eu
I'm
não
not.
sou.
That's a
Isso é
lack
uma
of
falta de
education. It's a
educação,
lack of
é uma
agenda.
falta de pauta.
So
Então,
I'm a black
eu sou uma
person
pessoa negra,
with
com
light
a pele
skin,
clara,
mixed, right?
miscigenada, né?
Automatically, I'm the
Automaticamente
daughter
eu sou
of a
uma
white
filha
with
de
black
preto
or
com
white with
branco,
black.
branca com negro.
However,
Entretanto, contudo e todavia,
I'm a black
eu
person.
sou uma pessoa negra.
And it's very
E é muito
complicated to
complicado
explain to
explicar para
everyone.
todo mundo. Eu
I can
consigo
explain to
explicar
at
para
least
pelo menos
50% of black people.
50% das pessoas negras.
So there's
Então
always a
sempre tem
little
uma
joke about,
piadinha do
you're white,
você é
stop it.
branca, para.
And I don't
E
like
eu
it.
não gosto.
I don't like it
gosto
because
porque
I
eu
know
sei
I'm
que
a
eu sou
black
uma pessoa
person.
negra.
I know
Eu
I'm
sei que eu sou
considered a black person
considerada
by
uma pessoa
white
negra
people.
perante as pessoas brancas.
And it's very
E é
difficult,
muito
really,
difícil
to
realmente
explain this to black
explicar isso
people.
para pessoas negras.
I think there's a
Eu
lack
acho
of
que
study.
falta
I think there's a
estudo.
lack of
Eu acho que
culture.
falta pouco de
I
cultura.
think there's
Eu
a
acho que
lack of
falta pouco de
familiarity
familiaridade
with the subject.
sobre o assunto.
All right, so you heard what this young lady had to say. Very intriguing question. Um, intriguing for a lot of ways. Okay, so for me, I have a pretty wide window of what I consider to be black. That's just me. Other people are disagreeing with that. You got a lot of people who are going to go into the ancestry. They're going to go into, do you had two black parents? So are we looking at this from Brazil perspective, American perspective? You got black Americans who say you got to have two black parents to be a black person. And I'm like, this is all really, it gets kind of confusing for me because what I'm saying is, and I've always asked this question, there's so many different mixtures that you could have going on here. How do you define what is black? If this person right here showed that she had a black parent and two black parents per se, and then you take the exact same woman, how she looks, and you got a girl who looks exactly like her, and she has a black parent and a white person, who's black? Let's say the person who is mixed has a black parent and a white parent, and they were raised specifically by the black parent. Only had black influence, had no contact with the white parents. There's so many questions to ask, when you ask this question, and then you make just parameters on what is black. You have like Dr. Umar Johnson who says, look, people who are mixed of African ancestry, to me, they're just black. You got other people who are pushing back against that. Now, in Brazil, it gets infinitely more complicated to answer this question because of Brazil's history of teaching black people to avoid being black. I did two videos now on the singer Vanessa da Mata, and she says, look, I am black. I accept myself as black. Don't try to take this away from me. She says she was taught not to be black, not to say she was black when she was a child. Now, in the last 20 years, I've seen this evolution of black identity in Brazil where so many more people are identify themselves as black. You have people who say they're strictly mixed, brown or Pardo. You say people who say, yeah, I have a Pardo color, but I'm still black. So who's answering the question? What defines blackness? Is there any one way that we can define this blackness? The United States is moving more towards if you have a white parent or a non-black parent, then you're just mixed. You're only partially black. Then you have Brazil that's saying to Pardos, the mixed brown category, to say, look, if you're of African descent, you need to move towards the black category. So you get this back and forth, depending on what is the standard for blackness in both countries. Some people will argue, why are you trying to push this on Brazil? And I'm like, it's not me trying to push this on Brazil. In reality, when you go back to slavery, the slavery era, you see these terms that are generally where you have, it's like the non-white population. Brazil has set it up so that people who have whatever degree of mixed race, they can opt out of the black category. But then in the last 2 decades, you're having these Pardos who do accept being black. So this is why I say I can't give a clear answer, but I would say it's somewhere between 60 and 70 million in terms of the black population. Always a question of black racial identity or just racial identity in Brazil. Then you have to look at the white population. If a person isn't automatically white in Brazil, does that make them black? And I would argue that that's not true. I've seen too many quote unquote mestizos who you just can't categorize in one category or the other. But I see a lot of Pardos who I can say on the outside, just looking at them physically, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can tell this person is mixed. but I see African features there. So for me, that person is black. They might have a looser curl, they might have a lighter tone of brown, but to me, that's just me speaking, and a lot of people would agree, other people would disagree. It's an ongoing debate, which is why this is such an intriguing topic. What you have to also know, several articles I've talked about this. Brazil's Black rights movement, the Movimento Negro Unificado, has long advocated that pretos and pardos belong in the same category because of social economic statistics that show them almost identical in so many different categories: education, quality of life, salary, let's say education, the likelihood of becoming managers, and in jobs, the likelihood of being harassed by the police. All of these things for them puts black and brown in the same category. Not black and brown in the US sense, because that includes Latinos or Hispanics. But in Brazil, we're talking about people who are clearly black and people who are whatever degree of mixed black. Okay. So then what's intriguing about this and makes it confusing is that after years of trying to convince these so-called pardos to accept their blackness, now pretos are pushing back and rejecting pardos and saying they're not black enough. This is all began, it's so twisted because you've had people who have denied being black for years. Even if you look at them and say, I can tell you at least partially black, who deny being black for years. There's quotas and affirmative action on the table. Suddenly they become black or brown or whatever. But then you have the situation where the confusing nature of the Brazilian phenotype. Who's black enough? Who's brown enough? Quotas are supposed to be for black, brown, and indigenous people. But then you have black people pushing back saying this person is not black or brown enough, so they should not take the position of a legitimately black person and have quotas and take a position from a person who's more clearly black. And I've always argued you can't have both sides. You can't use these people who you consider to be pardos or mixed, partially African descendant, to blow up the numbers and say Brazil has the largest black population outside of Nigeria, but then turn around and say these same people don't qualify for quotas because they're not black enough. It's a contradiction to me. They had to set up judgment boards and look at each quota prospect to be judged by a board that says, I don't think she's black enough, he's not black enough, or this person is. It's crazy what's going on in Brazil. Rejections of pardos for not being quote unquote black or brown enough. It's a whole discussion here, almost white, almost black. After a long historical discussion, pardos, brown, or people of mixed race gain a new identity, which means light-skinned blacks. And let's be clear, not all pardos are light-skinned. Some people say pardos do exist. It's a legitimate category, and they're not black. Some people say the word pardo or brown. It was an ongoing joke for a while, saying, no, a pardo is the color of a paper bag. You know, we've seen numbers increase where we see people specifically who previously didn't identify themselves as specifically preto, meaning black, and all of a sudden they're going from the pardo category over to the preto category. So we see a lot going on in terms of identity in Brazil, preto, pardo, and negro. Now, for the civil rights movement in Brazil, black rights movement, pardo and preto, meaning black and brown, make part of the black population. Okay. What else do we have here? So these are some well-known, well, some of these, some of the people may not be familiar with a few of these people, but, actor Lázaro Ramos, actress Aparecida Petrochi, you have the sociologist Edson Santos, the actress Taís Araújo, volleyball player Wallace de Souza. Is a bigger image of these five people, and I'm just saying that the vast range of phenotypes in the black population in Brazil. Now, again, just to make it so that everybody understands, because I want both sides to be clear so you can understand why this is such a controversial topic in Brazil. In Brazil, the terms preto and pardo are used to describe people with a variety of racial backgrounds, including those of African descent. The Brazilian black movement considers pretos and pardos to be part of a single category, being negros or blacks. Okay, these are the five main social, racial, color classifications in Brazil: branco or white, pardo meaning brown or mixed, preto meaning black, amarelo meaning yellow of Asian ancestry, and indigenous, indigenous or what they call American Indians. But then you have, among the five categories that I just mentioned, pardos are the largest racial category group or color classification group. I think this became official some months ago, or maybe sometime last year. Pardos now make up 45.3% of the population as of 2022. This is a group made up of people of mixed ancestry. They officially surpassed the white or blanco category. But we have to keep in mind, a lot of those Pardos are actually black. As I said, 4 out of 10 actually consider themselves black, but they're in the Pardo category, which is why I say you can't just simply say, oh, well, it's just, you can't say that Brazil has this large black population because Pardos are the biggest group. But even within the Pardo category, 4 out of those 10 Pardos consider themselves to be black. This is how I come to a figure of 60 to 70 million black people in Brazil. So as I said, they had to set up, boards, panels that judge people according to how they look and say this person deserves to have quotas because they're black or brown enough, and this person does not. Due to the phenomenon of white students declaring themselves black, the Coletiva Negrada launches a campaign against fraud and racial quotas. People saying, I know I look white, but I'm actually black, because now they want to take advantage of quotas when they've been saying they're white for their whole life. I'm black, woman accused of committing fraud after entering a university through affirmative action policies, even though she doesn't look black. This guy has red hair, but he wants to use his grandmother being black. I find it hard to believe, not saying it's impossible, but this guy's grandmother is black. He comes out with this pale skin and red hair. Was he lying? In any way, it shouldn't matter. In Brazil, they don't go by ancestry. They go by what you look like. So why is this guy going back saying that my grandmother is black? Here's a picture of a bunch of Pardos who were rejected by affirmative action quota boards for not being black enough, and that's a picture that you see online right here. And it was just funny because this picture just shows me, and this same picture right here just shows me, like, yeah, there are Pardos who I would not consider black. They're just clearly mestizos, and then you got other people who I would consider to be black. So, it's a difficult thing. You can't just put all Pardos in the black category, but at the same time, you can't say all Pardos are not black, which is what's leading to this conversation. So this is why I thought this lady's, her responses to these questions were so important, because I can see that nowadays, before black people were saying, look, all of you Pardos need to come over to the black group. But then some years later, now when they see some Pardos coming into affirmative action and being able to get in a university, they say, hey, this is not fair. You're getting this person who's not even black, very fair skinned with very few black features, and she's getting quotas into the university. That's not fair. So it's like it's going all the way from one side over to the other side, and it's still an ongoing debate right now between, are Pardos and Pretos completely separate? Or are there some Pardos who fit in the black category and others who don't, which is what I tend to agree with that side. Anyway, what did you think about today's video? What do you think about what this young lady had to say? What's your definition of blackness? These are all pertinent questions. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let's get a conversation going. This is ongoing in Brazil. I don't think this point will ever be, I don't think people will ever just completely agree on this topic, but it still makes for good debate. Like this video, share this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Click on the notification bell so that you know when I put up another video. With that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post here at Black Brazil Today.